Have you ever wondered why the moment a woman stops chasing, the man begins? A strange reversal happens in his body, like a sudden quickening of breath, a restless urge he cannot name. The very silence of her withdrawal pierces him more deeply than her attention ever did. In that space, something ancient stirs, a hunger rooted not in reason but in the shadowy folds of the psyche. It is not about the woman who clings, who begs, who proves her value. It is about the woman who holds herself as a mystery, the woman whose absence cuts sharper than her presence ever could. This is the paradox of desire. The more she resists the gravity of pursuit, the more his unconscious is pulled into her orbit. Deep beneath his conscious mind lies the anima, the image of the feminine etched into his inner world since childhood. It is not shaped by logic, but by memory, wounds, longings, the mother he could never completely possess. When he encounters a woman who refuses to run after him, she unsettles him. She awakens the anima, that inner projection of the feminine that Jung described as both guide and temptress. She does not offer herself openly, and so she becomes the canvas on which his unconscious paints its deepest desires. The more he cannot touch her essence, the more he is forced to chase what he feels he is missing within himself. To the outside world, she does nothing extraordinary. She does not send endless messages. She does not try to prove her worth. She does not demand recognition. She simply rests in herself. Yet this resting, this refusal to abandon her inner center, makes her magnetic. A man senses it even before he knows it. He feels both threatened and fascinated. For the boy within him, who once sought approval from the feminine and never received enough, suddenly meets the woman who mirrors back his lack. Her silence is his confrontation. Her indifference is his mirror. And in that mirror, the cracks in his own psyche begin to show. For her, the power lies not in manipulation, but in remembrance. She remembers that she is the high priestess of her own temple, a gatekeeper to her own energy. She understands that every time she chases, she abandons the sanctity of that temple, spilling her essence in places unworthy of it. But when she holds back, when she turns her gaze inward, when she allows her presence to be enough, she returns to sovereignty. This sovereignty unsettles men, for it is rare. It breaks the common pattern of need and response. It flips the game on its head. Think of the little girl inside, the one who once believed she had to prove herself lovable. She was taught to give more, to smile wider, to soften herself until approval finally arrived. Yet approval was always fleeting, always conditional. Now, as a woman, the urge to chase is often that little girl resurfacing, begging not to be abandoned again. But the magnetic woman recognizes this ghost within her. She doesn't feed it with desperate action. Instead, she holds it, calms it, and refuses to let it dictate her choices. And in this quiet defiance, she becomes untouchable. The man feels it. He feels the edge of her restraint like a forbidden flame. He becomes restless, pacing in the corridors of his own mind, projecting fantasies onto her. She becomes the anima he longs to integrate, the symbol of the missing feminine he cannot claim. And so he chases, not because she asked, but because his soul demands it. His unconscious whispers that in her mystery lies the key to something he has long been searching for. He cannot articulate it, but he cannot ignore it either. You listening now might recognize this tension. Perhaps you have lived it, the pull to prove yourself to a man who only grew distant as you leaned closer. And perhaps you have seen the opposite, the way his energy surged forward the moment you stopped offering yours. It is not a trick. It is not a game. It is the law of psyche and shadow. When you stand still, when you refuse to chase, you awaken in him the forgotten boy and the eternal seeker. But this raises a question, one that lingers like a shadow at the edge of the fire. If a woman's power lies in not chasing, what exactly should she do in the silence, in that terrifying gap where his pursuit has not yet arrived? In the silence between his hesitation and his pursuit, the woman meets herself. At first, the quiet feels unbearable. The little girl inside whispers that something is wrong, that she must reach out, that she must bridge the gap before she is forgotten. Yet this is the very threshold where transformation begins. To remain still, To resist the compulsion to grasp is to step into the role of the untouchable muse. Her stillness is not passive, it is a living force, a field of energy that bends the dynamic around her. In that stillness, she is not waiting for him. She is waiting for herself to rise. A man feels this shift as if the ground beneath him has tilted. He cannot sense it with logic, but his body can. Nows, there is a pulse, a vibration that says she does not need him to confirm her existence. This stirs both attraction and terror. For the ego, which is built upon control, to lose grip on her is to feel the abyss open. He may attempt to test her, to provoke her into breaking her silence, into proving she cares. Yet the magnetic woman understands these tests for what they are, not declarations of power, but confessions of weakness. The man in his chase is not only chasing her. He is chasing the fragments of himself that her silence awakens. In Jungian terms, this moment is the confrontation with the shadow. The woman who does not chase becomes a mirror in which the man sees both his longing and his fear of abandonment. When she refuses to act from desperation, she forces him to meet that shadow instead of escaping it through her validation. Her stillness exposes him. He must either face the emptiness within or run from it. But if he runs, he does not escape unscathed. For he carries with him the ghost of what could not be possessed, the memory of the woman who remained sovereign. For her, the key lies in anchoring herself. It is easy to mistake silence for emptiness, but true silence is full. It is the fullness of a woman who is not distracted by the clamor of external approval. She tends to her body, her spirit, her inner fire. She may walk through the world with an aura of calm detachment, but inside she is not cold. She is alive, grounded in a self-intimacy that no man can replicate. This is what makes her magnetic. A man feels that she belongs to herself first, and so winning her presence feels like entering a sacred space, not collecting another conquest. Picture her walking through a crowded room. She does not rush to catch eyes, nor does she fold into the background. She moves as though she has nothing to prove, as though her energy is enough to shift the atmosphere. And it does. Men glance, not because she seeks their glance, but because her lack of seeking itself creates a vacuum. She radiates the paradox of the high priestess, untouchable yet irresistible. She does not chase because she is not lacking. Her absence of need unsettles men who have built their worth on being needed. This dynamic reveals a truth few dare to admit. Men do not chase women who cling, not because those women are unworthy, but because their energy satisfies nothing beyond the surface. When a woman offers herself before she has been sought, she becomes an answer to a question he has not yet asked. But the woman who does not chase, she sharpens the question. She leaves the man in his own hunger, amplifying it until he must move toward her. Desire is born not in availability, but in distance. The more she embodies her distance, without turning it into cruelty, the more his pursuit becomes inevitable. Yet here lies the paradox that unsettles so many women. If she does not chase, and if she does not manipulate, what is left for her to do? The answer is found not in action, but in being. She must learn to hold her energy like a flame in her own hands, not extinguished by fear, not flaring wildly to gain attention, but steady. This steadiness is rare in a world where most scramble for scraps of recognition. It is the steadiness that men feel in their chest as a gravitational pull, though they cannot explain why. But the question lingers, sharp and unfinished. If her silence awakens the chase, how does she protect herself from being consumed by men who desire only the chase itself, not the woman within it? This is where discernment becomes her shield. Not all who chase are worthy. Some are drawn only to the spark of the hunt, intoxicated by the thrill of pursuit, but empty when the moment of possession arrives. They mistake her aura for a prize, not a presence. The magnetic woman must recognize the difference between hunger that seeks to devour and longing that seeks to honor. A man who chases from his shadow will try to consume her light to fill his void. A man who chases from his soul will approach her with reverence, sensing that her silence is not emptiness, but sacred ground. In Jungian language, This is the confrontation with the anima projection. A man who has not integrated his anima will chase her not as she is, but as he imagines her to be. She becomes his fantasy, his cure, his salvation. And when she cannot live up to this fantasy, his desire crumbles. But the man who has begun the path of individuation, who has faced his own darkness and named it, sees her differently. He does not chase simply to possess. He chases because he recognizes in her an echo of his own inner work. Her mystery does not frighten him. It calls him deeper into himself. The magnetic woman understands this. She does not surrender her essence to every suitor who arrives breathless at her door. She watches. She listens, not only to his words but to the tremors in his actions. Does he grow frustrated with her silence, demanding proof of her rest, or does he lean into the mystery, allowing the pursuit to humble him? The unworthy man wants the fire without the discipline to tend it. The worthy man kneels before the flame, not in weakness, but in reverence, knowing that its heat can both burn and transform. For her, the challenge is not whether men chase, but whether she can hold her ground long enough to let the truth reveal itself. The little girl within, the one who longs for quick reassurance, will plead with her to soften too soon, to break her silence, to accept crumbs disguised as devotion. But the magnetic woman answers differently. She whispers back to that inner child, reminding her that their worth is not measured by speed or by scraps. It is measured by the steadiness of their throne. She holds her ground because she knows that those who cannot stand in the heat of her silence cannot stand in the heat of her truth. This is why men remember her. Even those who walk away, defeated by their own impatience, carry her image like a scar. They may chase others, they may settle, but the memory of the woman who did not chase haunts them. She is the one who mirrored back their emptiness without trying to fix it. She is the one who forced them to confront their hunger instead of feeding it blindly. In their dreams, she becomes the silent oracle, a figure who speaks without words, whose absence whispers louder than any declaration of love. And yet there is a danger here too. The magnetic woman must guard against turning her silence into armor so thick that nothing can reach her. Detachment without heart becomes ice. Mystery without warmth becomes cruelty. True magnetism balances both. She does not chase, but she also does not harden. She remains open, yet unmoved by desperation. She lets him approach, but she does not collapse into his pursuit. This is the paradox she embodies, untouchable, yet not unreachable. For the man, this paradox becomes unbearable. The chase is no longer just about winning her. It becomes about winning himself. Each step toward her forces him to reckon with the gaps in his own soul. And yet, she offers no shortcuts, no easy validation. In this way, she becomes his initiation, whether he is ready for it or not. Some men will flee, unable to bear the mirror she holds. Others will rise, tempered by her restraint, and learn to meet her as an equal. But here lies the next shadowed question, the one that makes even the strongest women hesitate. If she allows him to chase, and if he proves himself through pursuit, how does she know when to stop holding back and begin to let him in? The moment of opening is not marked by his persistence alone. Many men persist out of obsession, not devotion, out of compulsion, not depth. True worth is revealed not in how fast he runs toward her, but in what he becomes along the way. If his chase makes him frantic, manipulative, or desperate, he has not faced himself. He only seeks escape in her. But if the chase deepens him, if he grows more centered, more patient, more attuned, then the pursuit has purified him. It has become his initiation, and only then does the woman consider lowering the veil. The veil is the sacred threshold of her energy. To lift it too soon is to hand over the temple key to someone who only came for the thrill of unlocking. But to never lift it is to deny connection altogether. The magnetic woman learns to sense the difference, not through words alone, but through presence. A man who is worthy does not merely demand entry. He approaches with respect, aware of the weight of what he is asking. His energy says he does not want to possess her essence, but to meet it. He does not reach for her to complete him, but to stand beside her, already whole yet willing to be transformed. This is the point where projection begins to crumble. The man who chases her for fantasy will falter when reality arrives. He will resent her humanity, her imperfections, the moments where she does not fit the anima he imagined. But the man who has grown through the chase will welcome this revelation. He will not turn away when the goddess becomes woman, when the archetype melts into flesh. He will see that her silence was not a trick but a lesson, that love must be born of respect, not illusion. For her, allowing him closer is not about surrendering power. It is about choosing from sovereignty. She does not let him in because he chased long enough, but because his chase revealed his truth. In her silence, she saw his shadow. In his pursuit, she saw his growth. And when she chooses to open, she does so not as a girl hoping to be chosen, but as a queen who chooses. This choice is her freedom. It breaks the chain of old wounds where love was earned through sacrifice. Now, love is granted through discernment. This moment transforms the man as well. The chase that began in obsession evolves into reverence. What once felt like a hunger to possess becomes a readiness to protect, to honor, to cherish. He no longer runs blindly. He stands steady, realizing that the mystery he sought outside was always meant to awaken something inside. The anima projection dissolves, and what remains is a man who sees her not as a goddess to conquer, but as a woman to meet soul to soul. Yet this delicate balance requires vigilance. Many women, intoxicated by the chase, mistake persistence for depth and open the gates too soon. They confuse obsession with devotion, intensity with intimacy. And when the man fades after conquest, they are left questioning their worth. But the truth is simple. Their worth was never the issue. It was the man's inability to carry the weight of her presence. A chase without transformation is only a game. A chase with transformation is initiation. Imagine her now, the untouchable muse, seated in her throne. She watches not with cold detachment, but with quiet knowing. The unworthy scatter, burnt by their own impatience. The worthy remain, tempered by fire. And when she finally extends her hand, it is not a gesture of need, but of choice. This is the ultimate secret of magnetism. She is never the one being chosen. She is always the one who chooses. But another question arises in the shadows, one that pierces deeper than the dance of pursuit. What happens when the man finally wins her presence, when the chase is complete? How does she remain magnetic without the tension of distance? When the chase ends, the real test begins. Many women fear that once they allow themselves to be claimed, the magnetism dissolves. They mistake the pursuit as the source of their power, forgetting that the true source was never the distance, but the energy they carried within. The untouchable muse does not lose her essence when closeness arrives. She remains magnetic because she continues to embody sovereignty even in intimacy. Her power was never about withholding. It was about self-possession. And so, even as she lets him near, she does not collapse into him. She does not trade her center for his presence. A man feels this difference immediately. When a woman confuses surrender with self-abandonment, he senses it. The fire that once drew him begins to dim, not because he no longer desires her, but because her energy has shifted from queen to supplicant. But when she keeps her core intact, when she does not dissolve into his moods or his approval, the attraction deepens. She is no longer a mystery he must chase, but a mystery he lives beside, unfolding endlessly. This is what binds him, not the thrill of the chase, but the recognition that her depths cannot be exhausted. Here the archetype transforms. She is no longer only the muse who eludes, but the high priestess who initiates. In intimacy, she becomes the silent teacher. She does not lecture or control. Her very presence awakens in him the awareness that love without respect is hollow, that possession without reverence is death to desire. The man, if he is wise, learns that keeping her is not about chasing her again and again, but about growing beside her, meeting her as she continues to expand. If he cannot rise to meet her, her energy will quietly retreat, and he will feel her absence even while she is in his arms. This is the paradox men struggle to name. They want to win a woman, but when they do, they realize the true challenge has just begun. For the magnetic woman is not a prize to be won, but a path to be walked. She is not the ending of a story, but the opening of another. Jung spoke of individuation, the lifelong process of integrating shadow and self. A relationship with a magnetic woman demands the same. She does not let him settle into comfort, she calls him into growth. Not through demands or criticism, but through her very being. For her, the task is to remain in her throne even when love tempts her to step down. The old wounds whisper again, be softer, give more, prove your love, lose yourself for him. But she remembers the cracked mirror from her past, the one that shattered every time she abandoned herself. She knows that her magnetism is not found in sacrifice, but in sovereignty. To keep her throne while opening her heart is the art she must master. When she does, she becomes not only magnetic but eternal in his psyche. And so he learns that desire does not end with conquest. Desire matures into devotion when mystery remains alive. Not mystery as manipulation, but mystery as depth. She is a woman who continues to choose herself, and in doing so, continues to invite him to choose her again and again. She never becomes a possession because she always remains a presence. She is both here and beyond, both attainable and untouchable. This paradox keeps the flame alive. Yet one more riddle lingers, one that many women secretly fear. If sovereignty is the key, how does she balance it with vulnerability, without losing her magnetism to the very intimacy she desires? Vulnerability is not the opposite of sovereignty, it is the crown jewel of it. Only a woman who is firmly rooted in her own worth can afford to be vulnerable without collapsing. When she opens her heart, she does not do so as the little girl pleading to be loved. She opens as the queen, choosing to reveal her humanity while still seated in her throne. This is what makes her softness irresistible. It is not weakness, but power restrained, power offered as a gift rather than wielded as a weapon. A man senses the difference. Vulnerability rooted in neediness unsettles him, for it feels like a demand, a weight pressed into his chest that he must carry. But vulnerability rooted in sovereignty humbles him. It invites him closer without drowning him. It says, I can stand alone, yet I choose to let you see me. In this, she awakens not just his desire, but his devotion. For devotion is born when a man realizes he is being trusted, not as a savior, but as a partner worthy of sharing her sacred inner world. In Jungian language, this is the dance between anima and animus. The anima awakens in him through her mystery, but the animus in her awakens when she allows herself to be witnessed. When these archetypal forces meet, something beyond ordinary attraction occurs. It is no longer a chase, no longer a game of distance and pursuit. It becomes alchemy. Her sovereignty steadies his passion, and her vulnerability softens his ego. Together, they forge a bond that is both magnetic and enduring. But here lies the danger. Many women confuse vulnerability with surrendering their boundaries. They open too wide, too soon, mistaking the flood of intimacy for depth. And when the man pulls back, they are left emptied, convinced their openness was a mistake. Yet true vulnerability does not scatter her essence. It is a precise unveiling. She decides what to reveal and when. She lets him touch her heart, but she does not hand him the throne. This balance keeps her mystery alive, even as she lets him closer. Picture her seated by the fire, the man across from her. She speaks of her fears, her dreams, her scars, but her eyes never lose their steadiness. She does not tremble in the offering. She knows that whether he stays or leaves, her worth is untouched. In this balance, she disarms him, for he has met many women who either clung too tightly or closed too firmly. But here is one who can be soft without being broken, open without being lost. This paradox penetrates him more deeply than any chase. The magnetic woman understands that intimacy is not the death of magnetism, but its fulfillment. The same energy that made her irresistible in distance now deepens in closeness. She is both fortress and sanctuary. A man who wins her does not lose the thrill of mystery. He discovers new layers of it, each revealed only when he has proven steady enough to hold them. This is why she remains unforgettable. She does not give herself all at once, nor does she withhold indefinitely. She reveals in rhythm, in phases like the moon, always changing, never exhausted. And yet, a final question flickers in the embers of the story. What happens when she no longer fears losing him, when her sovereignty and vulnerability merge completely? What kind of woman does she then become? She becomes the woman who is no longer defined by the chase, nor by the man who answers it. She has crossed the threshold where sovereignty and vulnerability are no longer two poles but one unified state. This is the birth of the silent oracle, the archetype who carries both mystery and compassion in equal measure. She does not cling, she does not retreat, she simply is. And in her being, she exerts a force stronger than pursuit, the gravity of presence. A man who stands before such a woman feels it instantly. He realizes that he cannot control her, not with affection, not with distance, not with promises. She cannot be bargained with, for her value exists beyond transaction. He cannot cage her, for she has no fear of absence. He cannot play the game of scarcity, for she does not chase what withdraws. He learns, perhaps painfully, that she is not his to win or lose. She is only his if she chooses, and that choice comes from her wholeness, not her wounds. This is the culmination of individuation for the feminine. The little girl who once sought proof of her worth has grown into the woman who carries her worth as naturally as breath. She no longer fears abandonment because she no longer abandons herself. Her silence is no longer a strategy, but a natural extension of her being. She is magnetic not because she withholds, but because she exists as a whole, radiant force, untouchable by desperation. In this state, the man undergoes his final transformation as well. The chase, once driven by shadow and projection, now matures into devotion. He no longer seeks to capture or consume her because he knows it is impossible. Instead, he seeks to walk beside her, aware that her depths will always extend beyond his grasp. And this realization does not weaken his desire, it strengthens it. For mystery without end is the only flame that never dies. The red thread weaves back now, the image of the cracked mirror from the beginning. That mirror once symbolized the woman's fractured sense of self, the reflection of worth that shattered each time she gave herself away too cheaply. But now, the mirror has been left behind. She no longer needs it, for her worth is not reflected in the eyes of a man. It is carried within her. The broken glass lies in the past, a relic of a story she has outgrown. And as she steps away from it, the air feels different. She has become the oracle of her own life, the keeper of her own flame. To the world, she may appear subtle, even ordinary. But to those who meet her, she is unforgettable. Her magnetism is not in the loudness of her beauty, nor in the performance of allure, but in the quiet force of her sovereignty. She is both distant and near, both open and untouchable. She is the paradox every man chases but few can hold. And in the end, she does not chase because she does not need to. She chooses, and in that choice lies her freedom. So the question returns to you, lingering with the weight of inevitability. When was the last time you chose yourself so fully that your silence spoke louder than your words? Share the moment you felt most empowered in the comments below. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.